You are watching the Final Four presented by AT&T in Tampa, Florida. Getting ready to go. Texas and South Carolina up first later on tonight. UConn and UCLA. The winners will play Sunday, 3 Eastern on ABC for a national championship. 4th meeting this season between Texas and South Carolina. Both coaches, both teams use different verbiage to describe what they thought was going to be some form of a rock fight, a physical contest, and both coaches, Dawn Staley and Vic Schaefer, said they hope they let them play tonight because they want their defenses to be able to be physical here. Madison Booker, the sophomore sensation for Texas, averaging just under 19 points per game in this tournament at 51% from the floor. South Carolina has taken 2 of the previous 3 meetings between these schools this year. And here we go in Tampa. The Final Four is underway.
See South Carolina starting out in their man-to-man defense. The matchup to keep an eye on. Bree Hall guarding Madison Booker.
Here's Harmon. Bouncing inside. Shea Holly finds Jones. Harmon looking for her mid-range. The leaner won't go. Jones on the offensive board got fouled. And Taylor Jones is going to shoot 2. That's an early personal on Chloe Kitts, who has been perhaps more important than anyone to South Carolina of late. Was the MVP of the SEC tournament, was the most outstanding player in her region in Birmingham. And Jones sinks the first free throw.
So important for Texas if they can get onto the offensive glass. You saw it there from Taylor Jones. Getting herself to the free throw line as well.
And Jones hits both. Now when Texas beat South Carolina, one of the things they were aided by was South Carolina getting into foul trouble early in that game, namely Sanaya Fagan.
We saw against TCU, Texas's pressure just wreaking all kinds of havoc. What does South Carolina have? Big players, Chloe Kitts, Sanaya Fagan, who can initiate their offense and bring the ball up the floor.
That time, Kitts pass knocked away. Here's Booker, 3-on-2 developing, and Raven Johnson able to break it up. It'll stay down here with Texas. Texas very good when it comes to forcing turnovers. Force about 21 a game. That's 16th in the nation. Here's Booker. High catch, elevates, and drops it in. That feathery touch from Madison Booker.
Great time for Madison Booker to get her shot dropping early. We've documented that she has had some struggles against Texas this season. I'm sorry, against South Carolina this season.
Yeah, in practice against Texas, she's been fine. And that's going to be a charge against South Carolina as Harmon took the hit.
Rory Harmon does this regularly. She steps over, establishes position, and now both of South Carolina's starting bigs have 1 personal foul.
Harmon, 41 charges drawn this season, 4th in Division I. And the first thing Dawn Staley brought up to us about Keys tonight was staying out of foul trouble and hoping that the game was not officiated too tightly. Clear charge there, and so 1 apiece on the 2 key bigs for South Carolina. Knocked away by Pow, a timely steal. Te-Hina Pow will lay it in.
Terrific defense by Te-Hina Pow on Shea Holly. She read that pass, was in denied, jumped the route, and got the easy 2.
Pow, second team All-SEC, ticketed for the WNBA. Following her conclusion here at South Carolina, national champion a year ago, is Mwenentanda. Gets free and lays it in.
Really nice job by Jacqueline Mwenentanda to drive hard to the basket. Just got a shoulder past her defender.
Good start here for Texas, a 6-2 lead. Fagan off 1 leg, can't drop it in. Mwenentanda knocks it away, and Harmon comes up with it for Texas. Here's Harmon veering through traffic. Will peel back. Rory Harmon, who is not yet announced whether or not she'll come back next season, gets her pocket picked by Raven Johnson. Johnson unable to finish on the other end, and it lands back with Harmon. Harmon has it knocked away. We've seen this kind of pressure defense from Raven Johnson. Saw it against Caitlin Clark in the national championship game last year. Booker again for Madison. Booker feeling it early on.
Madison Booker just got one step past Hall, but with her ability to elevate and her high release made it look so easy.
Booker, who, as Rebecca alluded to before, shot just 26% against South Carolina this year. Hall keeps it alive. Johnson in the corner. Can't hit the three. Rebound loose, and it's out of bounds. Will stay here.
See Madison Booker coming off the screen. Hall does a good job chasing, but a step late is a step too much for Madison Booker. This is a young woman who does not show a ton of emotion. She is feeling it here early.
More mid-range makes than any player in Division I college basketball this season. The SEC Player of the Year. After she was the Big 12 Player of the Year last season. Joyce Edwards, the talented freshman off the bench for South Carolina, couldn't finish there. Here's Harmon behind the back. Harmon can't hit, and the rebound to Pow Pow. And Pow Pow stepped out of bounds. It's going to be Texas basketball.
See Pow Pow come down with the board.
Yeah, just with the right foot.
Corner. It's remarkable, Ryan. Texas right now looks like the team that has been to multiple Final Fours, and they have not. And this is a South Carolina team. All of these starters were here a year ago.
Harmon drops it in. A 10-2 start for Texas. They are 4 of 6 from the floor in the early going. Lob inside, Edwards. Finds Fagan. What a nice find from Joyce Edwards. A terrific passing big.
All of the South Carolina big players are willing and capable passers, especially when it comes to passing to their other post player.
Tanda. Off to Shea Holly, couldn't handle it. Fortuitous hop, Jones misses the hook. Whacked out of bounds. Last hit Texas. It'll be South Carolina ball. Here comes Malaysia Fulwiley and Miriam Dowda.
Malaysia Fulwiley, just the type of player that can completely change the momentum of a game within the course of a couple of possession or a couple of minutes, especially if she can wreak havoc on the defensive end, Ryan, and then push the ball and transition the other way. That's where she's so electric.
Well, we saw her change the game in the national championship game a year ago. Her and Tessa Johnson coming off the bench and doing so for South Carolina after they'd fallen in an early hole against Iowa. Here's Dowda. Dowda unable to hit, and Jones the rebound. Miriam Dowda, who's played just 4 minutes a game in this tournament, getting early action here. Harmon kicks it out. Holly over to Booker. Her jumper is good. Madison Booker is feeling it early at the Final Four. Now coming up with a steal. Four turnovers already for South Carolina. Booker wants it again. Nearly lost it, now did. Was it deflected? It was not. And it'll be a backcourt violation against Texas. But what a start for the Longhorns in their first Final Four since 2003. Madison Booker looking comfortable.
Madison Booker yet to miss a shot. She is in the flow, in the rhythm, the master of the mid-range, feeling good. What a start to this game by Texas forward Madison Booker. What a great possession here. She delivers the basketball. They switch sides of the floor. What is Madison Booker doing? Pointing. She knows where she wants the basketball to go. Steps out, steps into the shot with confidence. Then what does she do? She sprints back on defense, gets her hand in the passing lane, gets the steal, and another possession for her team. She's breathing hard, and she has earned every second of the lean and the tug on the shorts there.
Let's take a look at tonight's player spotlight, brought to you by Marriott Bonvoy. Madison Booker, the Big 12 Player of the Year, the first freshman in conference history. Then this year was the SEC Player of the Year and a first-team All-American. Incredibly talented and just such a fluid motion on that jump shot, which she credits her coach Mel for, who she worked with when she was 7 years old. Taught her 3-step jump shots, and she just did it all summer long, and it stayed with her since as Edwards gets the whistle. And that'll go against Rory Harmon. That'll be the first foul on Harmon.
We talked all season about how one of the formulas for South Carolina's success is their depth. And here we are 5 minutes into the first quarter. They've already played 9 people. Texas yet to sub.
Well, they're going to say side out of bounds here instead of free throws. Vic Schaefer was curious about that as well. Remember, in the college game, it's whether or not the contact occurred prior to the start of the try. Here's Fulwiley. Tessa Johnson in off the bench for the Gamecocks. Guarded by Booker. 6 to shoot. Johnson dumps it in and out of bounds. Texas basketball, 5th turnover already for South Carolina.
Terrific defensive possession by Madison Booker as well. Working hard, moving her feet, staying between Johnson and the basket.
Booker gets fouled by Tessa Johnson, trying to keep Booker away from the basketball.
And this has been the formula throughout the course of the season when these two teams have matched up, whether it's Bree Hall or Tessa Johnson, using their length and physicality to try to prevent Madison Booker from getting a touch.
12-4 start for Texas. 4th meeting of the season between these schools. Booker, and that one's going the other way. And Booker had another good-looking jumper there, but that foul is going to be against Texas. Hey, the Bird and Taurasi show, presented by AT&T, is back for its 4th year, currently airing on ESPN2. And for Sunday's championship, they'll be on ESPN at 3 Eastern. They've got Pope-like protection up there. That foul was on Taylor Jones, her first, 4th turnover for Texas. Here's Tessa Johnson, can't finish it. And another foul against Texas. Jones was in the area as Dowda was hit. So was Mwenentanda. We'll see who they call it on. It's on Mwenentanda. That is her first.
Miriam Dowda, a player who on the season only averages 6 minutes per game, but you and I saw her in the SEC tournament in the semifinal game against Oklahoma have hugely impactful minutes.
Well, one of the things Dawn Staley talked to us about throughout the season is she said she's going to help us at some point. And when you first come to South Carolina, it can be intimidating. You get around all these great players. She's transferred from Arkansas. She said, but she is eventually going to help us. And she's had some big moments, being asked to come through again here in this Final Four. Mwenentanda, after picking up her first. Shea Holly bounces in, loose bounce pass, taken away by Edwards. Here comes Joyce Edwards for South Carolina. Edwards rummaging inside, and the blocking foul is called on Booker as Edwards will go to the line, and now Madison Booker picks up her first.
South Carolina's bigs not only are terrific rim runners, but we've already talked about their ability to handle in transition as well. You see Edwards coming down. Booker does not get there in time. Edwards just eyes on the rim, doesn't get the opportunity for a three-point play, but now at the free throw line.
All SEC first team as a true freshman. The last 2 members of South Carolina to do that, they're pretty good. Asia Wilson and Aaliyah Boston. By the way, you'll see a lot of the Texas players actually wearing Asia Wilson's new shoes, the A1s. The Nike school, they got to go have a special visit with Asia. Even though we know she's not rooting for Texas tonight, I'm sure she's rooting for their footwear. Here's Harmon, elevating and gets denied by Raven Johnson. And they'll say it last hit Texas out of bounds to South Carolina.
Raven Johnson at only 5'9" is a very good defender and a deceptive shot blocker. You see her here. Wow, just beautiful. Stays clean below, stays clean up top.
And that's the right call. It clearly last hit Harmon. And then South Carolina racing up the floor gets a foul on Texas. And that's going to be on Madison Booker, and it will be her second. Tessa Johnson goes to the line. That is just a critical foul. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, if you're Madison Booker and you're playing with one, unfortunately, you just can't do that.
Yeah, you simply can't afford that one. And we've seen how important she has been early in this game to Texas. I mean, South Carolina, most of their game plan is determined around trying to slow down Madison Booker.
Booker getting looked at after she took that blocking foul. So critical minutes for South Carolina to try and take advantage of here with Booker on the bench. And the Gamecock faithful behind their bench rising to their feet.
Rory Harmon very important offensively here. Lee as well.
Harmon drops it in. Big bucket there for Rory Harmon.
Previous possession, she got blocked, but that's where she can be good, is getting in a few feet away, elevating, scoring. She's going to have to take the load of playmaking while Booker is out of the game.
Here's Fulwiley, always electrifying. Malaysia dips in for two. In those tight moments against Maryland in the Sweet 16, it was Fulwiley who almost exclusively provided South Carolina's offense in the fourth quarter. The freshman Lee gets hit, and free throws here for Jordan Lee.
Malaysia Fulwiley is so quick and shifty here, behind the back, through the leg, crossover, gets by the defender. She's so good at finishing around the rim, creates the contact so she can then go in, dipsy-do it through.
Jordan Lee, this is the first free throw. Fulwiley has had very different last two games. Sweet 16s at a South Carolina NCAA tournament record with 23 off the bench. In the Elite Eight, played just 11 minutes. And Dawn Staley said, look, this is just purely based on production, as she finds Dowda underneath, who travels. And she said, there were times in the past where she would pull Malaysia Fulwiley out, and she'd be done for the game. So she's grown so much in that when I do have to take her out, she's able to stay in the game, come back, and be productive when she gets another chance.
Look at how dirty this lane is, Ryan Rucco. South Carolina's guards completely playing off of Holly and Lee.
Holly bounces out. Harmon, 7 to shoot. Harmon inside, can't finish it. Here comes Pow Pow. With Texas leading by 4 in the first quarter. Pow Pow weaving through a lot of traffic, gets held up, and the possession arrow belongs to South Carolina.
You see how far off of the players South Carolina's guards are, just completely leaving the shooters. This makes the lane dirty. A lot of bodies in there. So much harder to get dribble penetration or post-entry passes.
I don't know that anything excites you as much as a dirty lane. Fulwiley is hot early.
The faster the game, the more open space, the better for Malaysia Fulwiley.
(10-3) South Carolina run. What a move from Wenentanda, carving up the D. Shea Holly doing a nice job denying Tessa Johnson. Edwards feeds Dowda, back to Edwards, on the interior, lays it in. Edwards and Dowda have done a really nice job off the bench on the inside for South Carolina. Here's Wenentanda. Kicking it out, Lee's three, off, rebound, Oldacre gets fouled by Dowda. Oldacre grabs at a right knee immediately. Dowda took some contact. Oh, and they're going to call the foul on Oldacre. No. They're going to call it on Dowda. Let's see, the official signal was for it to be on Dowda.
So the box out is clean.
And they didn't call anything until Oldacre goes down.
Yeah.
Foul is on Dowda, and the free throws will be Oldacre's.
Because Dowda trips her. Even though it's because she fell down, she still trips Oldacre, and therefore the foul.
So Dowda picks up the personal. That is her second. Miriam Dowda's played 5 key minutes for South Carolina in this first quarter. We mentioned it before. She has averaged just 4 minutes a game in the tournament. Dawn Staley seeking an explanation there. Oldacre, who is one of the best offensive rebounders in the country, goes to the line. 69% on the season. It's the first. Now, perhaps more offense than many would have expected in this first quarter. It's not like the scoreboard is completely lit up, but Dawn Staley told us she thought it might be first to 50 in this matchup, and it's 19-16.
Yeah,
right?
I think that's what we thought as well. Remember, these teams, this is the 4th time they're playing each other since January. Not usually a recipe for high-scoring, pretty basketball.
Right, and Texas has been held to just 53.5 points per game in the first 3 meetings against South Carolina.
Once again, using a post player to initiate the offense.
About a 2-second difference, game and shot clock. Here's Edwards. Veering to the cup, Joyce Edwards. 6 seconds left. Harmon with time. Harmon races, stops, dishes. Preston can't hit at the buzzer. And that will do it for the first. Texas a 1-point lead after 1. Holly Rowe chats with Vic Schaefer when we come back in Tampa.
Players on both sides attacking the basket, stepping out. This one, Mylasia Fulwiley draining the 3. And how about Jakalenga Menintanda driving to the basket, putting it in spin cycle, finishing as well.
Well, Coach Schaefer, Madison Booker, 2 fouls on the bench right now. How will you navigate her playing time here in the second quarter?
Carefully. Yeah, carefully.
What do you do?
Well, I think, she'll play, but she's going to have to be on her toes. She got the second one because I think we're weren't quite on our toes like we need to be. So, I'm sure they'll come at her a little bit, but we got to give her good help.
You were a little frustrated with your team just now. What will the message be when you go back to the huddle right now?
We turned down a charge. You got a big 5 player getting downhill. I don't care if she passes it over here. She's going to run over you. So, again, you want to win a game like this, you got to sell out right there.
Thank you, Coach.
All right, hook 'em.
Well, Vic Schaefer's team a 1-point lead after 19 points in the first quarter. The last 2 games against South Carolina, they had 19 points combined in those first quarters. They were their lowest scoring first quarters of the season. That was the second matchup against them, and then in the SEC championship game. But it'll be interesting to see how Texas does navigate here offensively with Madison Booker on the bench with 2 fouls.
I would imagine Vic Schaefer will leave her on the bench as long as he can, unless South Carolina goes on a big run where he needs to bring her back in.
Meanwhile, South Carolina's bench has changed the game per usual. Fulwiley and Joyce Edwards doing that. Fulwiley on the bench to begin the second quarter. Here's Preston, the freshman, dives in, couldn't wiggle into a whistle. And South Carolina, a chance to take its first lead of the night. Here's Bree Hall. Hall dumps it in. Edwards goes to the corner. Pow finds Fagan, who couldn't quite finish the hook.
South Carolina, though, doing a really good job getting Texas's defense into rotation, which got Fagan a good look on a smaller defender.
Oldacre Surrounded by three, lost it. Johnson has it. Johnson gives it up. Pow. Yes, yes! First lead of the night for South Carolina. Dawn Staley has told us how when Pow hits shots, it calms the entire team. Last year led the nation in three-point shooting percentage at 47%. Lee looking to respond, cannot. When Ntanda flags it down. When Ntanda kicks it back out, Lee got that one.
And that's been one of the big issues for Texas, not only this season, but in particular against South Carolina. Their inability to shoot efficiently from the three-point line, even when it's open.
They were 2 for 17 combined in those first three matchups against South Carolina. They are just 347th in Division I in three-point makes per game, averaging just over 3. Edwards center of the lane, and a blocking foul is called against Texas.
Te-Hina a season ago led the nation in three-point field goal percentage. Out in transition, you can get a clean look. It's deep, but relatively clean, and goes right through. Jordan Lee, however, with the answer. The freshman for Texas, their best three-point shooter percentage-wise.
And now for tonight's Need to Know, brought to you by Dick's Sporting Goods. Texas, South Carolina this season had one total lead change in their 3 regular season meetings. They've had 2 already tonight. And now 3. Chloe Kitts back in, had an early personal. Edwards, how about Joyce Edwards? 8 points, 4 of 4 from the line coming off the bench. And Dawn Staley talked to us about the way she had struggled the last 3 games, the attention she had gotten defensively, having to adjust to double teams as a freshman. She has certainly bounced back so far tonight.
Not only with the way that she's shooting, but the way that she's been able to handle the doubles, deliver the basketball to her open post teammate.
That pass a little too long for Jones, and Texas turns it over. 7th turnover for Texas. South Carolina has turned it over 6 times. Here's Johnson, was a member of the all-tournament team in the Final Four last year. Here's Johnson through the lane, got smushed. Raven Johnson now. Bounces to Kitts, has a step, lost it, out of bounds to Texas, as Chloe Kitts couldn't quite hang on. That's the 7th turnover for the Gamecocks.
One interesting thing to keep an eye on here for Texas is they've gone with their double big lineup with Kyla Oldacre and Taylor Jones out there together. Ryan, in the course of this entire season, those 2 players have been on the floor for a total of 3 minutes together.
And Vic Schaefer said depending on how the game's being called, he'd be comfortable or uncomfortable going to it. Pow knocks it away, and it's out of bounds off of Texas. We've seen Te-Hina Pow very disruptive on the perimeter defensively. Something she spent a lot of time working on in the offseason, heading into this season. Her ability to impact the game defensively, as Fulwiley will check back in for Tessa Johnson.
And one Ntanda in for Oldacre, so there goes the double big lineup.
It was nice while it lasted.
Yes, it was.
It gave us a chance for the graphic. That's right. Really what we wanted.
That's right.
Pow throws it. Ooh, saved by Fulwiley. Harmon able to tiptoe. 3-on-1 developing, and just really poor spacing on that transition opportunity from Texas. Harmon fakes, takes, can't hit. Rebound secured by Johnson. Harmon 2 of 7 now. Pow gives it up. Johnson extra feed, and Fagan lays it in.
Great hot potato basketball right there. Just passing the ball around and then finding Fagan inside.
3-point South Carolina lead. 6:10 to go in the second quarter. How long does Vic Schaefer wait for Booker? Oh, not much longer. Booker going to the scorer's table. Here's Lee dipping inside, able to bank it in. That's a big bucket from the freshman Jordan Lee.
Beautiful footwork.
Fulwiley dashing through the lane, able to float it in.
When she has space, watch out, because she can get by just about any defender, get to a spot.
7 points on 3 of 3 shooting for Mylasia Fulwiley. South Carolina, 3-point lead. Lee dishes out. Off to Harmon. Lee, mid-range jumper. She got it. We saw this in the Sweet 16 against Tennessee when she had 13 points. Played a season-high 33 minutes. Jordan Lee bringing it here in the first half of this semifinal.
A guard with size who can create her own shot.
That's a poor pass from Fagan out of bounds. As Madison Booker will check back in. It was 12-7 Texas when Booker checked out with her second foul. I mean, they got outscored by 6 with her on the bench, but all things considered, could have been much worse for the Longhorns.
And you want Madison Booker to stay aggressive on the offensive end of the floor, but if you're South Carolina, next possession going the other way, you go right at her trying to pick up a third.
Brianna Preston dishes to Booker. Back to Preston. Holly, not a good pass. Jones lost it. Jones surrounded by 3, 8 to shoot here. Preston turns the corner and lays it in. Texas back in front. And then a foul on Preston on the inbound. We will step aside. 4:33 to go in the second quarter of our first semifinal. Well, South Carolina has been an absolute juggernaut over the last 2 seasons, 72-3. Their only 3 losses over that span have come against UCLA in November, Texas in February, and Connecticut in February. And guess what? Those are the 3 other teams along with South Carolina in this Final Four. Dawn Staley has built a consistently excellent program in Columbia, a 5th straight Final Four for South Carolina that's tied for the 2nd longest streak in NCAA history. The only streak longer, Connecticut's 14 straight.
This is a lineup now for Texas where Madison Booker is playing the 4 spot. A little bit easier to not chase guards all over the floor on the defensive end.
Lob it to Fulwiley. Fulwiley backs it out, Booker guarding her. Fulwiley drops it in, and a foul on Preston, who is hanging with Kitts. That is the 2nd foul on Preston. They coming up at halftime. It's the Dove halftime report. Elle Duncan, Andrea Carter, Chinea Gwumake, previewing Beckers against Betts, and a reaction to this tightly played first half. Hi, ladies. Backdoor, Kitts lays it in as Booker had to be careful there playing with 2.
Yeah, great back cut by Chloe Kitts, and Madison Booker ended up behind her. Smart. Do not foul. Help side should have been there.
First points of the game for Chloe Kitts. Jordan Lee fakes the 3, puts it on the floor, and hits the jumper. How about Jordan Lee in this second quarter? Fulwiley separates. Oh my! Couldn't quite get it to go from 3. Preston now racing up the floor. Lobbing it in. Jones the catch and the finish. Good action here in this second quarter with Texas and South Carolina.
And a great catch by Taylor Jones because the defender was right there. She was corralling the board with feet around her, still able to finish.
Here's Edwards, the spin. Edwards, what a take. Couldn't quite finish it. And Booker ends up with the rebound. Booker flings it ahead. Gets it back. Booker's 3 off. Edwards bounces it ahead. Hall alone at the rim. What a dish from Joyce Edwards. Showing that outstanding court vision is very much a point forward for South Carolina.
Joyce Edwards has struggled in a number of games here in the NCAA tournament, but here in her first Final Four, she has been terrific.
8 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists for the freshman. the SEC Freshman of the Year. Booker elevates, got hit by Hall, who says, yep, I got her. And Madison Booker is going to shoot two.
If you're South Carolina, continue to attack Madison Booker when you can. Look, she goes right by, does not give an opportunity where she can pick up the foul. And then the get-ahead pass by Joyce Edwards. Hall here. Once again, Madison Booker just has to fly by, but very smart of her to do that on the defensive end.
Madison Booker at the line. 6 points in this first half. Let's check in with Holly Rowe.
Well, you talked about her productivity in the mid-range. She has the most beautiful elevation on her shot at that free throw line. And I want to credit her father, Carlos Booker. At 6'10", he was a terrific player at Southern Miss. But every single day after school, she would come home and play against him in the driveway. For so many years, she couldn't get a shot past him, so she had to gain that elevation. That's what you're seeing in her game.
And you're just seeing her pick up her third foul, Holly.
South Carolina putting pressure on by advancing the basketball. Madison Booker trying to get back, eyes on the ball at the last second, pulls away. But she knows right away the fouls come. Dad knows it as well.
I mean, that is just a critical foul.
That's an unlucky one. That's an unlucky one, Ryan. She was looking at the basketball, wasn't sure that the player was there.
So Booker back to the bench with Texas leading by 2 as Hall banks it in and ties it at 33. What does Texas have to focus on the offensive end of the floor without Madison Booker?
I think getting Jordan Lee as many touches as they can. She has been the one who has been able to create shots without Booker on the floor.
And that's going to be an offensive foul on Wenentanda. And that will be her second.
Wenentanda is trying to set a good screen for Preston, but she's moving right there. Yeah, that's as illegal as it gets. And when you're at that point of the floor, it's so easy for the officials to see a moving screen.
Rebecca, first time in Madison Booker's career she's had 3 fouls in the first half. I also want to say this, there's been a lot of fouls in this first half. Every single one we have replayed has absolutely looked like the correct call.
Yes.
Tied at 33, under 2 minutes to go in this first half. Here's Johnson guarded by Lee. Tessa Johnson floats it up and off. Tip won't go from Edwards. Gets blocked by Jones, controlled by Texas. Here comes Preston, who has great speed. Preston zips into the lane, unable to finish. Gets toppled on by Fagan. 4-on-4 the other way. Johnson can't finish. Raven flags it down. Pow, pow. You bet! A chaotic sequence that ends with a pow-pow 3. Dick Schaefer was very frustrated at no call on the other end on Preston's drive when Fagan ended up on top of her. Wenentanda through the lane. No call again as Wenentanda hits the deck, and Texas turns it over for a 10th time.
Raven Johnson just passing right into the shooting pocket. Te-Hina pow with plenty of time for the release. And then the point afterwards. Always point at the player who passes you the ball.
You love the point.
Love the point.
When we asked Dawn Staley, what do you need from Te-Hina Pow tonight? She said, shoot the ball, no second guesses. That's what we've seen from Pow. No hesitation when she's gotten free from deep. 3-point South Carolina lead. Johnson backs away into Fagan. Fagan patiently curls it in. Beautiful move from Sanaya Fagan.
Beautiful stutter step. Her pivot foot stayed down. She just took 2 steps with that left foot to get the look.
A 9-1 South Carolina run. Largest lead of the game for the Gamecocks. Shot clock is turned off. Rory Harmon, a veteran of this program, knows it. Taking her time. Here's Lee. Back to Harmon. Baseline jumper short. Edwards couldn't grab it. Wenentanda gets fouled. And Wenentanda is going to shoot 2 with 1.8 to go in the half.
I think that's Sanaya Fagan's second foul.
They're going to call it on Edwards instead, her first. Texas has been outscored by 13 with Madison Booker off the floor in this game. And she's been off the floor much more than Vic Schaefer would want because of those 3 fouls. And when Ntanda hits both, felt like a big possession right there for Texas to get a couple of points.
Yeah, without question. And their ability without Madison Booker on the floor for much of this half to stay attached.
Edwards hoists it down the floor, knocked away by Holly, and that will do it for the first half. South Carolina, a 3-point lead at the half. Madison Booker started hot, then got into foul trouble. Texas gets outscored by 11 with her on the bench. Meanwhile, South Carolina has won 103 straight games when leading at the half. Joyce Edwards, the freshman, is with Holly Rowe.
Joyce, your first national semifinal game, and you came out in a very comfortable fashion in the first quarter. How were you able to get so comfortable?
I mean, we played Texas a lot. This is our first time meeting them, so we already know what to do. I just feel like I seen the game at the beginning, and I just executed it.
They got off to a hard start, but you are closing the half with some momentum. How did you get that?
I mean, like turnovers. I feel like we minimized our turnovers, and they couldn't get points off our turnovers, so we just kept pushing, kept executing, and driving on offense, and that's it.
Thank you so much.
No problem, thank you.
How about Joyce Edwards in her first Final Four? 8 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists in that first half. Time to get things to the Dove halftime report. Elle Duncan, Andrea Carter, Chinea Gumake. Take it away, ladies. You are watching the Final Four presented by AT&T. Getting ready for the start of the second half in Tampa. South Carolina, Texas. Later on tonight, UCLA, UConn, and the championship game Sunday on ABC as we welcome you courtside once again. Ryan Ruocco alongside the Hall of Famer Rebecca Lobo. First 3 meetings this year between these teams, 1 total lead change. This first half, we had 7. And both teams were really able to find an offensive rhythm as we check out how they're fueling the run, brought to you by Wendy's.
Both teams very efficient in that first half, shooting 50%, and it certainly helped South Carolina that Te-Hina Paopao was feeling a rhythm from the perimeter. She made both of the threes that she took, and the story for Texas in that first half was Madison Booker. They went to her early, running sets for her. She's so dangerous when she can catch and score. She was 3 of her first 3 field goal attempts. Had to create for herself at times, but in a rhythm, feeling smooth. And then what happened? She picked up 3 fouls in relatively quick succession. The second one just not a smart one. Third one a little bit unlucky, but still that's going to impact the way she's going to be able to play the rest of this half.
Let's check out tonight's game track, brought to you by Invesco QQQ. Texas a +8 with Booker on the floor, -11 with her off. South Carolina again, a well-balanced attack. We mentioned the lead changes in South Carolina, an 11-0 edge in fast break points. So Booker does begin the third quarter on the floor with her 3 fouls. First time she's had 3 fouls in the first half.
Texas starting out in a zone defense here. That, of course, is to protect Madison Booker.
Hits. Almost went up and down. Here's Bree Hall. She got it on a 3. Celebrating to the point of stumbling. And then laughing afterwards. Hall is now 8 for 11 from 3 in the NCAA tournament. Largest lead of the game for South Carolina. Out of bounds off of Paopao. Dawn Staley still laughing about Bree Hall falling.
Nice pass out. Raven Johnson swing it around. Paopao does the same, and yeah, all went out after that one.
And a foul here as Booker hits the floor. Dawn Staley just jubilant after seeing Bree Hall eat it coming back up the floor
Well, Hall got up just like laughing ear to ear as well.
Yes. One of Dawn's seniors. Meanwhile, Fagan picks up her second. Here's Booker, gets space. Can't hit that jumper, and Hall, the strong side rebound. Madison Booker 3 for 5 from the floor. Hit her first three. Has had just 2 attempts since because of her limited minutes with the foul trouble.
Texas now back to man-to-man.
Here's Kitts, fakes the jumper, now will take and hit. It's an 8-point edge for the Gamecocks. One of the things Vic Schaefer emphasized to us, he said, in the SEC championship game, we had 5 bad minutes. Ended up getting outscored 21-6 in the second quarter. You can't have 5 bad minutes against South Carolina. As Booker hits the jumper and Texas will take a timeout, Vic Schaefer wants to talk about what's happening on the defensive end. We'll step aside. Madison Booker's jumper, about as sweet as anybody in the country's.
Madison Booker can get to her spots on the floor. Just a little bit of space. The leg kick. Starting to feel it again here in the second half.
Well, Bree Hall draining a big three. And then, you know what? She's going to have some fun. What? Hey, uh-oh. And look at Dawn's on it right away. Yeah, and Bree a bit afterwards. Just terrific. Dawn Staley can't get enough of what she saw from her senior, Bree Hall, who has such a magnetic personality, one of the leaders of this team. Meanwhile, both teams have shot it very well in this game, Rebecca. Texas shooting 50% from the floor. South Carolina 53%.
You mentioned Vic Schaefer calling that timeout, looking frustrated with his defense. And the first possession we talked, they played zone. They've only played 30 possessions of zone this entire season coming into this game. Then back to man-to-man. Today they were working on it where after a number of passes, they would then switch back to the zone.
Hall jumper is good. Stays on her feet this time. Bree Hall, who averages just 6 points per game, has 9 tonight. And this is part of what makes South Carolina so dangerous. They have so many different players who on any given night can step up like this. Booker wanted a whistle, didn't get it, and at last hits her out of bounds to South Carolina. Great defense from Bree Hall.
And that's why Bree Hall is on the floor primarily, is because she's a terrific defender with size and length. Here, for the most part, straight up defending, but anything she can give you on the offensive end truly is gravy, and she's been terrific offensively tonight.
Just slipped out of Booker's hands. Here's Fagan directing traffic. Fagan floats it right to Shea Holly. 11th turnover for South Carolina. Here's Booker around the screen. Booker elevates and hits again. Madison Booker with 11 points is 5 of 7 from the floor. Operating with those 3 fouls. 6-point South Carolina lead. Kitts darts one in. Fagan, no. Rebound, Kitts able to spin it in through some contact.
Raven Johnson, the 5'9" guard, was the one who kept that board alive so Kitts could go get it.
7th offensive rebound for South Carolina. Here's Booker coming off, dumps it down, took some contact. Jones couldn't lay it in. Raven Johnson wheeling. Missed the lay, Kitts the rebound, got bumped by Mwenentanda. That is foul number 3 on Mwenentanda. Hey, don't miss the Women's NCAA Championship game on Sunday. Our coverage begins with Eldre and Janae at 2 Eastern on ABC. For more information, go to ncaa.com. You're home for all 90 NCAA championships. Tip will be right around 3. Bird and Taurasi show over on ESPN. We'll have the call here on ABC.
Where?
Not here, there. Here will be Sue and D. which congrats to Sue going into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. Hall can't hit the three. Here's Harmon working behind Wenentanda. Here's Harmon off to Shea Holly. Oldacre doubled, surrounded, and a foul.
South Carolina really has done an outstanding job of surrounding Texas's post players. Whoever it is, a second body comes, a third comes. That time called for a foul, but at previous possessions, you've seen them get turnovers as a result. Fagan working. Here comes Chloe Kitts. Is that foul on Fagan or Kitts?
They called it on Kitts. It's her second.
I didn't see a foul.
If anyone, maybe
If
Fagan.
anyone, Fagan, yes.
And for Fagan, it would have been the third, so South Carolina will take that trade. Here's Jordan Lee. The freshman was so good in the first half. Lee can't hit the jumper. Rebound knocked out of bounds by Wenentanda. And Vic Schaefer yelling at Jordan Lee, shoot the ball. Wanted her to take that first look. That's who the set was for, and that was the shot that was meant to be taken.
Yeah, it was there, and she just hesitated, and then it's a harder shot to hit when you've already pump faked and have to go back up a second time.
Lee and Booker, the only players in double figures. Here's Fulwiley. Fulwiley looking to take Lee. Couldn't finish it over. Oldacre couldn't grab the rebound, but Harmon does. Here's the senior Rory Harmon. Dumps it into Oldacre, right back. Harmon floats it back. And Rory Harmon's very lucky that a whistle came on that, because that was just a floated pass in the middle of a lot of trouble. Instead, it's going to be number 3 on Sanaya Fagan.
Kyla Oldacre just working hard in there. Looked like Fagan had successfully kind of pulled the chair and made Oldacre lose her balance, but then gets tagged with the foul.
So Dowda comes in after Fagan picks up her third. One of the things Dawn Staley's emphasized to us all season is the importance of having Fagan on the floor because of the way she communicates.
Especially on the defensive end.
Harmon in the mid-range. She got it.
Credit Kyla Oldacre. Sets a big, mean screen that gets Rory Harmon open there.
Harmon 3 of 9 from the floor, has 6 points. 6-point South Carolina lead. Joyce Edwards, the freshman who was terrific in the first half, in off the bench for South Carolina. Edwards motors to the cup.
Edwards simply has the quickness advantage on the Texas post, and she's taking advantage of it.
Harmon, mid-range jumper, won't go. Edwards another rebound. They get ahead to Pow Pow. Pow Pow picking her way. Edwards settles things down. Pow Pow around the screen, 8 to shoot. Pow Pow backing down, 5 to shoot. Pow Pow got fouled by Harmon. Her second free throws coming for Te-Hina Pow Pow. The freshman Joyce Edwards has been sensational tonight. 10 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists off the bench to lead the way for South Carolina. Holly Rowe.
Well, she's a local from South Carolina, grew up in Camden, and when she was just 12 years old, she went to a Dawn Staley basketball camp. Her reward for winning the MVP and best player of the camp was to be a ball girl at one of the games in Colonial Life Arena, where she got to meet her idol, A'ja Wilson. Fast forward, here she is. A'ja Wilson is watching her play basketball tonight. I can't even imagine what an amazing full circle moment that is for this young woman. Dawn said 1 year she will be the best player in the country, and she's well on her way tonight.
Yeah, she has been outstanding off the bench for South Carolina in a game where they got off to a slow start. Texas jumped out to a 12-4 lead, and Edwards helped change the game. And now Booker has it stolen. How about Pow Pow? How many times have we seen her sneak in and come up with a steal?
2.
Here's Booker elevating again, unable to hit that one. For Wiley had it, lost it, so did Oldacre. 11-point South Carolina lead. They've held Texas to just 6 points thus far in this third. Edwards going to work again, and the foul on Tanda will be her fourth.
Te-Hina Papa just doing a terrific job reading the eyes. Comes up and just darts right through. Saw that the ball was going to go there, got the steal, finished the other way.
Oh yeah, the whole Pow Pow crew loving what they're seeing from Te-Hina. Meanwhile, Tanda will go to the bench with 4 personals.
Ooh, this is going to be a tough matchup for Booker.
Edwards couldn't squeeze it in. Dowda battling on the glass. Oldacre able to win it. Gets it ahead to Harmon. Cross court, Booker. Booker. Preston has it on the block. Texas struggling against the South Carolina defense in this third. Vic Schaefer often tells us he thinks South Carolina's defense is so underrated because people focus on how good they are offensively, as Fulwiley picks up the foul. That is her first. South Carolina has won 108 straight games when leading by 10+ points. They had their 57-game regular season SEC winning streak snapped by Texas back in February. And I think the officials are trying to figure out whether or not this was the 4th or 5th foul on South Carolina. Because if it is the 5th, then it would put Texas at the line. And it was the 4th. So now Texas will shoot the rest of the quarter as Preston just floats it back to Harmon. Harmon finds Preston. Booker, her jumper off. Weak side rebound, Dowda. 11-point South Carolina lead with 2 minutes and 30 seconds to go in the third.
I'd look for Joyce Edwards. She's giving up, Lee's giving up inches, yes.
Nice job by Lee to battle and knock it away. Vic Schaefer talks about how mature defensively Jordan Lee is for a freshman. Booker kicks. Harmon's long 2, way off. And here comes Edwards again, trying to go coast to coast. Joyce Edwards all the way in.
This performance by Joyce Edwards, not only incredible because she's a freshman playing in her first Final Four, but she has struggled the last 3 games of this tournament.
Had a combined 15 points in the last 3 rounds. She already has 12 tonight to go with 9 boards and 4 assists.
Joyce Edwards, your power forward, takes the ball on one end, pushes it the other, finishes with a little bit of contact. Tongue wagging, eyes on the rim, focus there.
Bench loving what they see, and so the South Carolina's fans, or who they call their fams. You know, it was interesting. South Carolina played 2 uncharacteristically close games in the Sweet 16 and Elite 8. Joyce Edwards struggled in those games, 5.6 of 21 shooting. Tonight, completely different story. But Dawn Staley was talking to her. She said late in those games, what she kept thinking about was, we can't let our fams down. They already are looking forward to a trip to Tampa. We need to figure out a way to win these games. And South Carolina, even though they were tested in ways they haven't been over the last couple of years in those rounds, they just found a way to persevere. Tonight, they've played a much more dynamic, fluid, rhythmic style than what we saw squeaking out those wins against Maryland and Duke.
Yeah, certainly have. They look now, we talked about it early in the game, they now look like the more poised, experienced team in this moment.
Coverage of the NCAA Men's Basketball Championship Final Four continues tomorrow on CBS. For more information, go to ncaa.com. I want to remind you that when we're done with Texas, South Carolina here It'll be UCLA and UConn up next from Tampa. And maybe, yeah, a little bit of blood, some infection control here. So Edwards wrapped up, ready to go. I think initially you might have had Edwards' blood on Lee jersey. You dealt with the jersey, and then they found the blood. And it belonged to Edwards.
Good detective work.
Lee gets open, leaves it short. Texas, 1 of 6 from 3. They have hit just 3 combined threes all season in the 4 matchups against South Carolina. Tessa Johnson flashes free and dumps it in as Booker was careful with her 3 fouls. Largest lead of the night for South Carolina. It's 15. They're on a 9-0 run. Preston hits the deck. Harmon lost it. Was able to regather because she lost control on the deflection. Preston couldn't finish on the drive. Here's Fulwiley, head of steam. Pulled the string. Tessa Johnson. 1 more for Tessa Johnson.
I want to point out that Joyce Edwards on the defensive end of the floor right now is guarding Jordan Lee on the perimeter. She's a post player guarding on the perimeter. The last possession, sprinted the floor, got the offensive board.
Knocked away by Tessa Johnson, stays here with Texas.
Here, Tessa Johnson just cutting through a couple of possessions ago, and Madison Booker just has to be careful. And so South Carolina smartly looking to attack her.
An 11-0 South Carolina run. Lee, wide open 3 is good. A big one there for Texas, and the 2nd of the night for Lee.
That time Edwards got caught up on the screen.
Here's Johnson. Dawn Staley shouting out a play to her team. The defending national champions with a 14-point lead. Shot clock turned off in this 3rd. Tessa Johnson behind the back, leaning, can't hit. Rebound into the lap of Harmon, and that will do it for the 3rd. South Carolina outscores Texas 20-9 in the 3rd. Holly Rowe chats with Dawn Staley in a moment. South Carolina 1 quarter away from a chance to defend their title. South Carolina 58-44 lead over Texas, getting ready to start the 4th quarter. Time for tonight's coaches interview, brought to you by Symetra.
Coach Staley, you've been able to gain some separation here. What stands out about that ability to get some momentum and go on these big runs?
Well, I thought we're doing a great job with this. They ran a lot of screens in the first half. I think they got a little bit of weary legs, and now we just have to make sure that we're getting good shots at the basket. We're not turning the ball over. We're playing out of our 3rd and 4th options with organization, and then we got to bring it home.
That's what I was going to ask you next. The 4th quarter, what will be the keys to bringing it home?
The key is taking good shots, okay? Making sure that we're not turning the basketball over, making sure we're contesting all of their shots, making sure they have to work for every single point that they get.
Perfect. Thank you, Coach.
Thank you. And rebounding.
And rebounding indeed, Coach Staley. Start of the 4th quarter. South Carolina holding Texas to 9 points in that third time they've allowed single digits in a quarter against Texas this season, as we send things over to Holly Rowe.
Well, you can see Dawn always has style on the sideline, but she has some very distinctive necklaces that she wears around her neck. Everyone always asks me, what are those for? And, you know, she had a chance to meet a little girl, Blakely, 7 years old, who is going through leukemia. She met her in 2023, but tonight, Blakely gets to be here and watch Coach Staley coach for the first time. And before the game, she gave Dawn a new necklace. You'll notice a little tiny one right around the very top that Dawn is wearing, a really beautiful connection. Dawn said it helps remind her of how blessed she is to be coaching basketball instead of fighting and supporting Blakely in her fight.
Yeah, Holly, beautiful connection between Blakely and Dawn. And Blakely has given Dawn now 3 necklaces that Dawn wears at these games. And you talk to Dawn Staley, the connection she has to so many young people who she has met over the years who are battling cancer and other illnesses. Blakely holds a special place in Dawn's heart for sure. Pow. Missed it left, and it's out of bounds to Texas. So can Texas make a push here? Down 14. Booker was able to get through the third without picking up her fourth foul. When Ntanda has four herself. When Ntanda forces it up and gets fouled by Kitts, that'll be the third on Chloe Kitts. And when Ntanda is going to shoot two.
A couple possessions in a row with good defense by Bree Hall, because Texas was running high ball screens for Madison Booker. The last time, this possession here, didn't even let her use the high ball screen by Oldacre.
When Ntanda hits the first, Vic Schaefer has taken this Texas team to a place they have not been since 2003 in the Final Four, as that's out of bounds off of Oldacre.
Great hands by Fagan. And Oldacre is a strong post player with strong hands, and that time Fagan was able to prevent her from going up with it.
13 turnovers for Texas, 12 for South Carolina. South Carolina, a 13-point lead.
Texas again in his zone.
Here's Pow. Cuts inside, has it deflected, but a foul. And it will be on Oldacre. That will be her first.
But smart of Pow, because she's attacking not only the zone, but Madison Booker's side of the zone, and able to get by, draws the foul.
Pow has to get it in. Able to find Hall. South Carolina shooting 51% against this stout Texas defense. Texas third in the nation in defensive efficiency. Fagan waits, can't finish. Harmon gets up for that rebound. Here's Harmon kicking to the corner. Lee connects. Big sequence there for Texas. The third three for Jordan Lee. She has 16. Pow, you bet.
That possession for Texas, I think some players were in a man-to-man and some were in a zone, and as a result, Pow left wide open.
And that's what you were talking about earlier, Rebecca, how Texas has certain possessions that a number of passes trigger zone, but that can be hard to actually execute. As Oldacre couldn't finish it, it'll stay here with Texas. Well, still to come, Lauren Betts and UCLA. Lauren Betts, the National Defensive Player of the Year and a first-team All-American. A first in program history for UCLA in the NCAA era. They get it into Lee. Ntanda tries to force it up, and a held ball there. A possession arrow stays with Texas.
When Texas has struggled at times this season in their matchup with South Carolina, they turn into a self-shot creating team. And that's what we've seen the last few times. You know, instead of getting things off a drive and a kick or any kind of assist, it becomes a one-on-one game. And that is not when Texas is at their best.
Here's Ntanda. Looking in, Oldacre, great position, and Kitts is going to get hit with her fourth foul.
Yeah, Kitts had a fistful of jersey as Oldacre was trying to duck in the lane.
And now Dowda will check in for Kitts. Miriam Dowda has been a big factor for South Carolina in this game. She's not always a stable part of the rotation, and yeah, clearly a foul on Kitts. She
They've
had
needed
jersey
Dowda today.
She had oblique. She had a lot. But yeah, they've needed Dowda.
Because of foul trouble, they need her size and her length.
Shea Holly's first field goal attempt is short. Raven Johnson the rebound.
Used her reach nicely there to get that rebound.
.13 South Carolina lead, and Dawn Staley wants to talk things over. Asking for a 30-second timeout. So that means we'll be back really swiftly here with 7:10 to go in the fourth. Let's take a look at the Capital One rewarding performance. How about the freshman Joyce Edwards tonight in her first Final Four?
So incredibly poised. And what do you do when you have a bigger post player on you? If you've got the ability like Joyce Edwards does, you face up and you drive. We see her go right, then left. She kind of snakes right through multiple defenders and finishes. But she can also deliver the basketball to teammates. 4 assists on the day. 10 rebounds as well, getting out in transition. I mean, this young woman has been so incredibly impressive here.
A double-double and a career high in assists. Rebecca, you noticed something really interesting about that timeout taken by Dawn Staley.
Well, you heard in her interview with Holly Rowe questioning whether Texas's legs have been impacted by the pace of play because South Carolina is so deep. Wouldn't surprise me if Dawn Staley took that timeout when she did.
As Edwards gets fouled, and Joyce Edwards will go to the line to shoot 2.
If she took that timeout so that they no longer have the under 5.
Right, so you have 7 straight minutes of play. Now Texas would say, hey, we're ready for this. This was back in the summer, 190 days before the Final Four. They do what they call 6 a.m. track workouts, where they have to be so precise that they all get about 10 different uniforms that have just slight changes in them. Everybody has to wear the exact same one to meet at the track. If anybody's uniform is slightly different, and we're talking about it could be just a small logo somewhere, then they have to wait and do burpees until whoever is missing their correct uniform gets it. And Shea Holly, who's in charge of all this, is the one who has to run back to the dorm, as Booker can't finish the jumper. So they train for these moments, but to your point, South Carolina just has more depth and play at a faster pace.
So now the rest of the way, if Vic Schaefer wants a rest for his team, he has to use one of his timeouts. No more TV timeout.
It was interesting how much the Texas players said they actually liked the 6 a.m. workouts. As Hall gets free and lays it in. Great delivery from Raven Johnson. Tanda dishes out. Here's Holly. Shea Holly dumps it in. Oldacre looking to use her size, able to twist into a bucket. Texas trying to stay within striking distance. Down by 14, 5:40 to go in this fourth. And a foul on Shea Holly. Hey, this year's NFL Draft is in Green Bay. The 3-day event begins Thursday, April 24th. We'll have every pick once again on ESPN, along with our usual expert analysis. It's also available on the NFL Network. And as always, ABC's coverage focuses on the prospect's journey to the draft. Hey, look, Todd Bowles in the building. Bucks head coach. Here's Edwards.
How about calling for a clear out?
Wants to take it, dishes to the corner. Johnson's jumper is good. Everybody from South Carolina contributing tonight. Even Asia Wilson in the stands. The lead is 16 for the defending champs. And a foul on Dowda. That'll be the third team foul on South Carolina in this fourth.
That last possession, Joyce Edwards was on the right wing in the corner, clears out her teammates. This is what, your point forward, and then makes the perfect pass for the assist? this young woman here today. Wow.
Showing the full repertoire today as Harmon hits the mid-range. "14 points, South Carolina lead, under 5 minutes to go. UConn, UCLA up next on ESPN. Johnson connects. The entire roster is on fire. South Carolina 6 of 9 from deep. Madison Booker out of the game for Texas. Jordan Lee, not that time. Rebound Tessa Johnson, and South Carolina can slow things down, run some clock. So hard for Texas, too, when they fall behind big to come back because they just do not shoot a wealth of threes. Raven Johnson gives it up. Edwards spinning, couldn't finish it. Harmon off the rebound, dashing into the front court. The freshman Lee has been impressive tonight. Drops that one short. Taylor Jones couldn't finish it either. Good D there from South Carolina. Raven Johnson into the paint. Unable to finish. Taylor Jones the rebound. And Madison Booker remains on the bench for Texas. He's not at the scores table right now either. Preston is, along with Justice Carlton, and now Vic Schaefer is going to take a timeout with 3:07 to go in the fourth.
Joyce Edwards leads both teams in assists with 6. Clears out the floor. Dribble penetrates, finds her guard in the corner for a good-looking shot, and then surveying from up top, just looking with her eyes once again, delivers the ball to Tessa Johnson, the shooter, right into the shooter's pocket. How does the great Aaliyah Boston feel about it? Asia Wilson as well. Wow, what a performance from the young freshman here.
Alicia Gray right next to Asia as well. And Joyce Edwards, the first player with at least 10 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists off the bench in the Final Four in at least the last 25 seasons. Pretty solid Final Four debut.
Pretty good debut.
But this is part of what makes South Carolina so difficult, right? There's so many different options, and Dawn Staley, as we've seen, seemingly pushes the right button every time when it comes to this time of year. Jones gets denied by Fagan. Here's Fulwiley. Throws it away. Pow gathers, and now South Carolina will pull back out. Dawn Staley's on the sideline saying, calm down, run clock, guys. And Preston fouls Pow. You know, Texas on the brink of having their season end, Rebecca, but this is an incredibly consistent program now that Vic Schaefer has built. Madison Booker, just a sophomore, will be coming back. They have a couple of talented freshmen in Preston and Lee. They also have the number 5 overall prospect, Leah Crump, coming in. And you just can't say enough about what Vic Schaefer has done in his 5 years here with the Longhorns, now getting them to their first Final Four since 2003.
And Rory Harmon could enter the WNBA draft, but could also return. Has not yet declared what she is doing.
The heartbeat of this program, so too has been Shea Holly. Fulwiley, not that time. Shea Holly tracks down the rebound. Shea Holly is definitely done today. An Austin kid who is playing in a record 171st game for Texas women's basketball tonight. He's talked about what a dream it has been to be at the core of this program as it has ascended back to these heights. And the South Carolina fans know they are on the brink. Here's Tessa Johnson, and they'll call a charge as Johnson gets whistled for the personal. Dawn Staley wanted a little clarity, but the lead large enough that Dawn in South Carolina could smile.
Oh, Carlton was still moving.
Agree.
But you know what? Overall, this has been an incredibly well officiated game.
Yes. Carlton rumbles in, can't finish. Fagan the rebound. Since the first quarter, South Carolina has outscored Texas 51-33. They're a plus 14 in the second half. Into the corner, and Dawn Staley going to take a timeout just as Sanaya Fagan was loading up from the corner. With 1:14 to go in this fourth. Adele Tack. Patty McDaniel into the game for South Carolina. And they will look ahead to either UConn or UCLA. They have played both. They have lost to both in a single meeting earlier this regular season. And for Dawn Staley, she will now improve to 16-4 all-time against Vic Schaefer. Those two had so many battles in the SEC and in the postseason. When Vic was the head coach of Mississippi State, took them to 2 Final Fours. Tack gets blocked on the interior by Carlton. And then lays it in. The shot clock went off. And I'm pretty sure Preston inbound the ball to Carlton, and Carlton ran out of bounds with it. Nothing was called. Did they call a violation, or did they give him the bucket?
Just an odd sequence.
Scoreboard says no bucket. Here's Preston on the other end, laying it in. In the corner, down to why not? Pouring on a little sauce. That three is good. The 9.7 remaining. South Carolina can dribble this one out. South Carolina will play for a national championship on Sunday afternoon.
We've talked all season long about South Carolina's balance and depth, and it came through again for them here tonight. 3 players in double figures. Joyce Edwards, the freshman, the player who hasn't been in this moment before, shining as brightly as anyone else on the floor.
The chance to repeat lives for the Gamecocks. 74-57 the final, as South Carolina advances to the national championship game for the 3rd time in the last 4 seasons. They await the winner of UCLA, UConn, and the freshman Joyce Edwards is standing by with Holly Rowe.
Well, Joyce, this is a huge moment for South Carolina, an opportunity to get into the championship game. Where were you watching from last year? And now how are you making that must-watch TV yourself this year?
I mean, I was probably in the gym or either at an all-star game. But, you know, just locking in, just doing what the game gives me, and that's simple. I mean, I feel like my teammates gave me the confidence, especially when I was going through a slump, and I finally turned the page.
Coach talked to us, and you talked to us about that the NCAA tournament had been hard. You were getting a lot of defensive attention. How did you not let that bother you tonight and do your thing?
I mean, at the end of the day, it's not an if or it's a win. When I'm going to turn the page and when I'm going to get over it. So I feel like today I did. I just handled the pressure, and we won.
I don't know if you've had a moment to wrap your head around this, but you were a little girl. You got to meet A'ja Wilson when you're 12 years old. Asia's over there watching you play tonight. What does that mean to you?
I mean, everything. The reason why we're here is because of her. I feel like it's crazy for her to see it full circle, how her legacy is inspiring other girls just like me to come out here and play.
All right, what do you take from this game, the momentum, the confidence, and put towards the championship game on Sunday?
I mean, like you just said, we take the momentum. We're going to the next game and try to win. I mean, we got scout, and we just turned the page.
Thank you, Joyce.
Thank you.
Well, Joyce Edwards, a terrific performance tonight for the freshman. Comes off the bench to lead the way with 13 points, 11 rebounds, a career high, 6 assists as South Carolina wins it 74-57.